That civilian bird, who the hell does she think she is? The metallic voice crackled through the Apache radio as they locked target on the small helicopter inside the Old Bell. Aaron Blake felt each radar sweep across her aircraft like invisible needles. The sky bristled with weapons all aimed at her. But when they closed in and saw the faded flag fluttering beneath her tail, every gun barrel suddenly froze. Who was this woman? And why did one worn flag make an entire strike team stop cold? Captain Aaron Blake, 39 years old, was a former rescue pilot who had served in the legendary Freedom Wings unit, famous for their missions in conflict zones where others couldn't reach after her discharge. She had used her life savings to start Sky Angel, a private emergency medical helicopter service. Her operation focused on dangerous areas in difficult terrain where traditional ambulances couldn't go. Her Bell 407 helicopter was old, but maintained like a treasured family heirloom on the tail. She always flew the flag of her old unit, faded and bearing a few hand-sewn patches in places, but never once removed. Those patches weren't just repairs, they were memories. Each one covered a bullet hole or shrapnel tear from missions that officially never happened in the back of her aircraft. Today sat a young girl struggling to breathe, cradled in her mother's arms. This flight was their only hope of reaching the hospital in time to save precious minutes. Aaron had chosen the most direct route, unknowingly cutting through the edge of sensitive military airspace. The moment her aircraft appeared on radar screens, defense systems activated automatically on the ground. No one cared about her reasons, they only saw a red dot, an unidentified threat entering. Restricted territory, unidentified aircraft. You are in violation of restricted airspace. Came the first radio transmission. Alter course immediately. Aaron Keeter, microphone control. This is Sky Angel. I'm conducting emergency medical transport with a critical patient requesting permission to continue current heading. Negative. Sky Angel, no medical exemptions for this airspace. Change course now, or you will be escorted out behind her. The little girl's breathing became more labored. Her mother looked at Aaron with desperate eyes. Every minute of delay could mean the difference between life and death. Control patient is in respiratory distress. I need the fastest route to Memorial Hospital. Can you provide emergency corridor? The response was cold and bureaucratic. Sky Angel, redirect to alternate route or face military intervention. This is not negotiable. Aaron made a decision that would change everything. She maintained her heading, knowing that the extra 20 minutes from the alternate route might be 20 minutes this child didn't have. I'm continuing on current course, she transmitted. Medical emergency takes priority. The radio went silent for a moment, then crackled back with authority that made her blood run cold. Sky Angel, you have violated direct orders. Military aircraft are being scrambled to intercept. You will comply or face consequences. Through her headset, Aaron heard the distant thrum of approaching rotors. She checked her mirrors and saw them on the horizon, growing larger by the second. Two Apache attack helicopters bristling with weaponry. Closing fast, her Old Bell was no match for military aircraft in speed or maneuverability. She was effectively flying a civilian vehicle against war machines designed to eliminate threats. But Aaron had been in worse situations during her service with Freedom Wings. She had flown through enemy fire to extract wounded soldiers, had landed in hostile territory when everyone else said it was impossible. The difference was, back then the people shooting at her were enemies. Now they were her own military, following orders without understanding the human cost of those orders. As the Apaches closed the distance, Aaron's hands remained steady on the controls. She had faced death before, in service to others if necessary. She would face it again. The faded flag behind her aircraft fluttered in the rotor wash, a symbol of service and sacrifice that few people would recognize. But those who did would never forget. Subscribe. If you believe courage never retires, and neither does quiet loyalty. The Apache helicopters closed in like predators, their sleek forms cutting through the sky with deadly precision. Aaron could see the weapons pods beneath their stubby wings, missiles that could turn her Old Bell into scrap metal in seconds over the radio. A young pilot's voice crackled with arrogance and authority. "Hey there, Angel," the voice drawled mockingly. Looks like your tin can got lost from the toy store. Turn it around now, or we'll escort you down in a way that won't be very comfortable." Aaron gripped the cyclic tighter, ignoring the condescension. She wasn't angry, she was just tired. Another young soldier who saw only rules and regulations, not the human. Being fighting for life in the back of her aircraft, she kept her voice calm and professional. Apache lead. "This is Sky Angel. I'm conducting emergency medical transport with a critical patient requesting permission to continue." The voice on the radio laughed dismissively. "Oh, a classic excuse. Listen here, this is our airspace. Orders are orders. You've got 5 seconds to change course or things get unpleasant." In the back of her helicopter, the little girl's mother looked at Aaron with eyes full of fear and hope. The child's breathing had become even more labored, each breath a struggle that couldn't wait for bureaucratic procedures. "Please," the mother whispered, though Aaron couldn't hear her over the rotor noise. "Please don't let my baby die." Aaron made eye contact with the woman in her mirror and nodded slightly. She had made worse decisions under worse circumstances. She would not abandon this mission. Apache lead. "I understand your position, but I will not divert. This child needs immediate medical attention." Wrong answer. "Sweetheart," came the aggressive reply, "you just made this a lot harder on yourself." The lead. Apache maneuvered directly in front of Aaron's flight path, its chin-mounted gun swiving to track her aircraft. The message was clear: comply or face the consequences. Aaron felt her heart rate increase. But her hands remained steady. During her Freedom Wings days, she had flown through much worse than intimidation tactics. Enemy fire surface, to air missiles, hostile territory where landing meant capture or death. But those had been different circumstances. Those had been enemies. These were American pilots following orders they believed were justified. The second Apache pilot, younger and more aggressive than his leader, decided to escalate the situation. Control request permission to fire warning shots he transmitted on a frequency he thought Aaron couldn't hear. Negative. Apache 2, maintain intercept position only. Copy that. The young pilot replied, but his tone suggested frustration with the restrictions. He banked his Apache hard right, coming around behind Aaron's helicopter in what military pilots called an aggressive intercept. The maneuver was designed to intimidate, to demonstrate the overwhelming firepower advantage he possessed as he swept past Aaron's tail section, positioning himself for another intimidation pass. Something caught his eye. The flag fluttering from her aircraft wasn't just any old military banner. It was faded, certainly with visible wear and tears. But there was something specific about it that made him look closer. His aircraft's targeting system had high-powered optics designed to identify threats at long range, almost without thinking. He zoomed in on the flag for a better look. What he saw made his blood run cold. The flag wasn't just faded from age. There was a dark brown stain in the upper right corner. A stain he recognized immediately. It was blood. Old blood that had soaked into the fabric and never completely washed out, and that particular stain, that specific pattern, was burned into his memory from a ceremony he had attended 3 years earlier. This was the flag that had covered the casket of Staff Sergeant Mike Torres, a man who had died saving Apache 2's older brother during a rescue mission in 2013, the flag that had been presented to the Freedom Wings unit after one of the most heroic rescue operations in modern military history. Apache 2's face went pale beneath his helmet. His hands began to shake as the full realization hit him. "Control!" He stammered into his radio, his voice cracking with shock. "Abort, abort, intercept, repeat, abort all aggressive maneuvers." "Apache 2, explain your status," came the confused response from ground control. "That's Jesus Christ, that's Freedom Wings." He whispered, his voice barely audible over the radio static. The admission hung in the air like a thunderclap. Every pilot on the frequency knew that call sign. Every soldier who had served in combat zones had heard the stories of Freedom Wings, the unit that had flown into hell to bring people home. The pilots who had never left a soldier behind, no matter the odds, no matter the cost. The lead Apache pilot immediately pulled back, creating distance between his aircraft and Aaron's helicopter. The aggressive posture disappeared, replaced by something approaching reverence. "Sky Angel," came a new voice over the radio. quieter and filled with respect. Please continue on your current heading. Will provide escort. In that moment, the arrogance of assumption met the chilling silence of undeniable truth. A faded flag had spoken louder than any command, reminding everyone in the sky that some symbols carry weight that no amount of military authority can diminish. Now we want to hear from you. Does true respect come from dazzling displays or from the quiet secrets of unwavering service type eternal? If you believe the greatest legends choose to fly in the shadows. The radio silence that followed Apache 2's recognition lasted only seconds, but it felt like an eternity in that brief pause. The entire dynamics of the situation shifted from hostility to something approaching reverence. Ground control, monitoring all communications, immediately began pulling up classified files that most personnel would never have clearance to access. Apache lead, Apache 2. What is your status? Came the urgent transmission from the command center control. We have positive identification of Freedom Wings insignia. The lead pilot responded, his voice now carrying a weight of understanding that hadn't been there moments before. Confirm that transmission. Apache lead. Freedom Wings confirmed the aircraft is displaying authentic unit colors. The command center erupted in quiet activity. Duty officers who had been treating this as a routine airspace violation were suddenly accessing files marked with classifications that required Pentagon approval. Colonel Sarah Martinez, the base commander, was immediately notified. She had been a young lieutenant when Freedom Wings conducted Operation Guardian Angel in 2013, the mission that had saved an entire Special Forces team from certain death behind enemy lines. Get me everything we have on the pilot of that aircraft, she ordered, and patch me through to the Apaches immediately. Within minutes, Aaron Blake's service record appeared on classified screens throughout the command center. The information was sparse due to the sensitive nature of her missions, but what was there painted a picture of extraordinary heroism. Pilots. This is Colonel Martinez, came a new voice over the radio. You are escorting Captain Aaron Blake, former Freedom Wings. She has full authorization to proceed on any heading necessary for her medical mission. Apache 2, still shaken by his recognition of the flag, maneuvered his aircraft alongside Aaron's Bell helicopter. For the first time, he could see the pilot clearly through her cockpit window. She was smaller than he had expected, focused entirely on her flight controls and the instruments monitoring her patient's condition. There was no anger in her posture, no triumph at being recognized. She was simply doing her job the same way she had always done it. Sky Angel Apache 2 transmitted, his voice completely transformed from the arrogant tone of minutes earlier. This is Lieutenant Mark Taus. Apache 2. Aaron keyed her microphone. Go ahead. Apache 2, ma'am. My brother was Staff Sergeant Mike Torres. Special Forces, he was extracted by Freedom Wings in 2013. The silence that followed was heavy with meaning. Aaron remembered that mission, remembered the young soldier who had been critically wounded while covering his team's retreat. Your brother was a good soldier, Lieutenant. Aaron replied simply, he saved a lot of lives that day. Because of you, ma'am. Because Freedom Wings came for him when everyone else said it was impossible. Lieutenant Torres had grown up hearing the story of his brother's rescue, how Freedom Wings had flown through a wall of enemy fire, landed in the middle of a firefight, and extracted not just Mike but his entire team. How Captain Blake had taken shrapnel in her arm but refused medical attention until every soldier was safely aboard. Mike Torres had survived, that day recovered from his wounds, and gone on to serve 2 more tours. He was alive because a pilot he had never met decided that no soldier gets left behind. Ma'am, Apache lead interrupted. We're honored to provide escort. Freedom Wings never flies alone. The 2 Apache helicopters took positions on either side of Aaron's Bell. Their aggressive intercept formation transformed into a protective escort. What had begun as a confrontation had become an honor guard on the ground. Word of the situation spread quickly through military channels. Officers who had been involved in the initial intercept order were quietly briefing their superiors on the identity of the pilot. They had almost forced down Sir. One young officer reported to his commander, The pilot we've been tracking, she's the one who flew the Kandahar rescue and the extraction at Firebase Charlie and Operation Mercy flight. Each mission name carried weight in military circles. These weren't just successful operations. They were legends whispered among soldiers who understood what it meant to risk everything for others. Colonel Martinez herself took over radio communications with Aaron Captain Blake. "This is Colonel Martinez, base commander. I want to personally apologize for the initial response. Your mission has priority clearance through any airspace you require." "Thank you, Colonel, but no apology necessary," Aaron replied. "Your pilots were doing their job. They couldn't have known. They know now." Martinez responded, "And they won't forget." I is the unusual formation of one civilian helicopter, escorted by 2 attack aircraft, continued toward the hospital. Aaron focused on her patient. The little girl's breathing had stabilized somewhat, but she still needed immediate medical attention. In the Apache cockpits, both pilots found themselves looking at their escort mission differently. They weren't just following orders anymore. They were participating in something that connected them to a legacy of service that transcended rank and regulation. Apache 2, to Sky Angel Lieutenant Torres, transmitted, "What's your ETA to the hospital? 12 minutes. Aaron replied, "Copy. That will make sure you have clear airspace all the way in, true to their word." The Apache pilots coordinated with air traffic control to clear a direct path to the hospital's helipad. What should have been a complicated approach through busy airspace became a priority corridor reserved for a medical emergency as they approached the hospital. Aaron could see the medical team already assembled on the helipad, ready to receive her patient. The little girl was going to make it. "Sky Angel, this is Apache Lead," came the final transmission as they reached the hospital. "It's been an honor flying with you, ma'am. The honor was mine." Aaron replied, "Thank you for the escort." As her Bell helicopter settled onto the helipad and the medical team rushed forward to take the patient, Aaron shut down her engines through her window. She could see the 2 Apache helicopters hovering nearby, their pilots offering a final salute before turning back toward their base. The faded flag still fluttered from her tail boom, a symbol that had just reminded an entire military command that some honors transcend paperwork. Some legends never retire, and some colors never fade no matter how many years pass or how many regulations change. The little girl was wheeled into the hospital, her mother walking beside the gurney with tears of relief in her eyes. The mission was complete, the same way every Freedom Wings mission had been completed successfully, quietly, and without seeking recognition for the extraordinary courage it had required. But this time, recognition had found her anyway, carried on the wind by a flag that refused to let heroism be forgotten. 3 days later, the story of the faded flag in the Apache escort had spread throughout military networks like wildfire. Not as gossip, but as a reminder of what true service looked like. Lieutenant Torres requested permission to visit Aaron at her small hangar facility. When he arrived, he found her doing what she always did methodically, performing maintenance checks on her Bell helicopter. "Captain Blake," he said, standing at attention despite being out of uniform. "Just Aaron now," she replied, looking up from her inspection checklist. "And you must be Mike's little brother." Torres relaxed slightly. "Yes, ma'am. I wanted to thank you personally for what you did for him. Your brother thanked me already years ago. That was enough. He talks about that day sometimes." Torres continued, "Says he never expected to see home again until he heard those rotors coming in." Aaron nodded, remembering the mission. Clearly Firebase. Charlie had been under siege for 3 days when Freedom Wings got the call. "We had a saying in Freedom Wings." Aaron said, "The only impossible mission is the one you don't attempt." Torres smiled. "Mike says the same thing now. He's a flight instructor at Fort Rucker teaching that philosophy to new pilots. Word of the incident had reached other young pilots throughout the military. They began seeking out the stories of Freedom Wings, learning about missions that had been classified for years. Captain Jessica Chen, a young Army pilot, drove 4 hours to meet Aaron after hearing about the Apache encounter. "Ma'am, I wanted to ask you about decision-making under pressure," Chen said. "How do you choose between following orders and doing what's right?" Aaron paused her work, considering the question carefully. You don't choose between them, you find a way to do both. Sometimes that means accepting consequences for doing what you believe is right. But what if the consequences are severe? Then you remember why you took the oath in the first place. It wasn't to follow orders blindly, it was to serve something bigger than yourself. The hospital where Aaron had delivered the little girl sent her a letter of commendation. The child had made a full recovery, and her mother wanted to express her gratitude to the pilot who had refused to give up. Colonel Martinez also reached out, offering Aaron a position training military pilots in emergency medical evacuation procedures. We need someone who understands that rules exist to serve people, not the other way around. Martinez explained. Aaron considered the offer carefully. I appreciate the recognition, Colonel. But I found my purpose here. Sky Angel serves people who fall through the cracks. I understand, but would you consider guest lectures that I can do? The Apache pilots who had escorted her began recommending Sky Angel services to other military families facing medical emergencies. Word spread that there was a pilot who would go places others wouldn't. Aaron's hangar became an unofficial gathering place for military pilots wanting to understand what service really meant. She never preached or gave formal speeches. She simply shared stories, answered questions, and demonstrated through her daily work that heroism wasn't about grand gestures. It was about showing up, doing the job, and never leaving anyone behind. The faded flag still flew from her helicopter, and now everyone who saw it understood what it represented. Not just a unit that had been disbanded, but a philosophy that would never retire. Some colors, as the young pilots learned, weren't just fabric and dye. They were woven from commitment, sacrifice, and the unshakable belief that every life was worth risking everything to save. 6 months later, Aaron Blake received a call that would bring everything full circle. Sky Angel. This is Colonel Martinez. We have a situation that requires your expertise. A military transport had crashed in mountainous terrain during a storm. Standard rescue helicopters couldn't reach the site due to dangerous conditions, but there were survivors who needed immediate evacuation. Ma'am, Martinez continued, we're requesting Sky Angel assistance. No one else can make this approach. Aaron didn't hesitate. Send me the coordinates as she prepared her Bell helicopter for the rescue mission. She noticed something different. Her radio crackled with familiar voices. Sky Angel, this is Apache Lead. We're honored to provide escort. Looking up, she saw them approaching. Not just the 2 Apaches from 6 months ago, but an entire flight of military aircraft. Word had spread through the pilot community, and everyone wanted to be part of this mission. Lieutenant Tora's voice came through clearly. Ma'am, Freedom Wings. Never flies alone. And today we're all Freedom Wings. The formation that took off that morning was unlike anything seen in peacetime. A civilian helicopter surrounded by military escorts, united not by orders or regulations, but by shared understanding of what service meant. The rescue was successful. 3 soldiers were extracted from terrain that military commanders had deemed impossible to reach. Aaron landed in conditions that pushed her aircraft and skills to their limits, but she got everyone home as they returned to base, flying through clearing skies. Aaron reflected on how much had changed. The faded flag behind her aircraft no longer represented just a disbanded unit. It had become a symbol that connected generations of pilots who understood that some things mattered more than following orders. The young pilots who had once mocked civilian aircraft now sought out opportunities to work with Sky Angel. They had learned that wisdom didn't come from rank or equipment, but from experience, and the willingness to risk everything for others in a world obsessed with technology and regulations. Many people had forgotten that the most important qualities couldn't be programmed or mandated: courage, compassion, and the refusal to abandon those who needed help. These were values that transcended military branches and civilian boundaries. Aaron didn't need medals or recognition ceremonies. She just needed to know that when someone's life hung in the balance, there were people ready to fly into danger to bring them home. When her old Bell helicopter landed that evening, the faded flag still fluttering in the rotor wash, she was surrounded by pilots who had learned the most important lesson of military service: Some colors aren't made from fabric, they're woven from blood and sacrifice, and they never ever back down. The legend of Freedom Wings lived on, not in history books or official records, but in the hearts of those who understood that true service never retires. Subscribe Iron. Heart stories if you believe quiet service and old symbols still command the highest respect.